Part C. Academic Talks. Questions 36 to 50. You will hear academic talks or lectures. Answer the questions that follow. Talk 1. Question 36 to 40. The replication crisis in psychology.
Today, I want to discuss the epistemological challenges facing replication in psychological science. The replication crisis, as it has come to be known, emerged most prominently following the 2015 Open Science Collaboration Study, which found that fewer than half of 100 published psychological experiments could be successfully replicated. Critics have attributed this to a constellation of factors: publication bias, where journals disproportionately publish statistically significant results, small sample sizes that inflate effect sizes, and what is termed p-hacking, the practice of manipulating analytical decisions until a significant p-value is achieved. What is particularly troubling is that many of these practices were not considered misconduct under older norms of scientific flexibility. The field is now grappling with distinguishing between legitimate exploratory analyses and post-hoc rationalization of results. Pre-registration has emerged as the primary institutional safeguard, requiring researchers to specify hypotheses and analytical procedures before data collection. However, critics argue that pre-registration itself can constrain the exploratory nature of genuine scientific discovery.
Question 36. What was the primary finding of the 2015 Open Science Collaboration Study? Question 37. According to the lecturer, what does p-hacking involve? Question 38. What makes certain questionable research practices particularly problematic, according to the lecturer? Question 39. What is the main purpose of pre-registration, according to the lecturer? Question 40. What criticism of pre-registration does the lecturer mention? Talk 2. Question 41 to 45. Linguistic relativity and color perception.
The concept of linguistic relativity, the hypothesis that the language one speaks influences how one thinks, has oscillated between academic credibility and dismissal over the past century. The strong version, associated with Benjamin Lee Whorf, proposed that language determines thought entirely. Speakers of different languages inhabit fundamentally different cognitive worlds. This strong version has been largely refuted. However, the weaker version, that language influences certain aspects of cognition without determining it, has found renewed empirical support. Research on color perception is instructive here. Languages carve up the color spectrum differently. Russian, for example, obligates speakers to distinguish between light blue and dark blue. Studies using reaction time paradigms have shown that Russian speakers are faster at discriminating colors that cross their linguistic boundary than colors within a single term. This suggests that lexical categories can facilitate perceptual discrimination, even in tasks that do not require linguistic processing. Importantly, these effects are found primarily in the right visual field, processed by the left hemisphere, where language is dominant, but diminish or disappear in the left visual field. This hemispheric asymmetry is taken as evidence that language influences perception rather than perception itself being fundamentally restructured by language.
Question 41. What is the strong version of linguistic relativity? Question 42. What does the Russian color perception research demonstrate? Question 43. In what type of tasks are linguistic effects on color perception found? Question 44. What does the hemispheric asymmetry in color perception research suggest? Question 45. What is the current academic consensus on the weak version of linguistic relativity?
Urban heat islands represent one of the most well-documented yet persistently under-addressed manifestations of anthropogenic climate modification at the local scale. The phenomenon occurs when built environments characterized by impervious surfaces, reduced vegetation, and waste heat from energy use absorb and re-emit solar radiation more intensely than surrounding rural areas. Temperature differentials of up to 10 degrees Celsius have been measured between urban cores and adjacent rural landscapes. The implications are not merely climatic. Heat island effects exacerbate energy demand, increase urban ozone concentrations, intensify heat wave mortality, particularly among vulnerable populations, and accelerate the degradation of urban infrastructure. Critically, these effects are spatially inequitable. Low-income neighborhoods systematically exhibit higher heat island intensity due to lower urban tree canopy coverage and higher proportions of impervious surfaces, correlates of disinvestment in urban greening. Mitigation strategies include cool roofs, permeable paving, and strategic urban reforestation. However, their implementation is complicated by fragmented municipal governance, funding constraints, and gentrification dynamics, where greening investments may paradoxically increase property values, displacing the very populations they were intended to benefit.
Question 46. What primarily causes urban heat islands according to the lecture? Question 47. What temperature difference between urban and rural areas does the lecturer mention? Question 48. Why are heat island effects spatially inequitable? Question 49. What paradox related to urban greening does the lecturer identify? Question 50. Which of the following best characterizes the problem with implementing urban heat island mitigation?